Let's do some stuff about actions first. So I'm going to do most of these things with demos, of course, because that's much nicer. But I do have some slides so that I'm sure I don't forget anything. And the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit about barcodes. There's some new stuff about barcodes, a number of different things. And the first one is a very small one, and it shows, and you can see it there on screen, it shows that when you use place barcode in pdfToolbox 15 and so on, you had this checkbox that said white background, create a white background. And now it just says create background, and you can specify the color, which in some scenarios can be very helpful. And so just to show that, I have a file already, and then I'm going to use this place QR code, and in place QR code I have all of the parameters that you have in version 15 as well. And then when I scroll down, you will see that, oh, there is something else that is new here, but we're not going to talk about that. That will be for the last session. You will have to come back. And there is a thing called create background. And so what I've done here is I've said I want a CMYK color as the background, and then it's cyan to make sure that it looks very creative and that you see what's happening, and I could make it as a spot color and so on. So in essence, I have the same color setup parameters that I have for the barcode color itself, but now for the background. And when I run that on this file, I've zoomed in a little on it. So you can see that I now have a white QR code on a cyan background. And of course, the size of the background that you have here is the size that comes from the width and height that you've set up and so on. So that is a small addition, but it can be quite useful. Now, next, and I'm not even going to go into presentation mode for this because I want to show this as well. It's also nice, is that when I have a place barcode, and I'll use another one, place data matrix. So you can see that the type of barcode is a data matrix code in this case. When I have that in pdfToolbox 15, there is something that is really, really annoying and can give you a lot of extra work. And what it is that, well, when I'm adding a data matrix code, I will show you what happens. I hope I set it up correctly and I didn't ruin it. So what I have is, you can see that the width and height is quite big for this one. That's how I set it up. But I have a square data matrix. The default for a data matrix code is that it's square of a certain size. And in pdfToolbox 15, if I would want to change that, and instead of a square data matrix, I want a rectangular, because data matrix codes support all kinds of different aspect ratios and sizes. If I would want to do that, then I had to create an HTML template, and I had to use place content and then set up the advanced parameters in the HTML template. And that's really a lot of extra work. Trust me, I've done it. It's a painful thing, especially because it's only because I want a slightly different barcode on this document. In pdfToolbox 16, what you can do is you can go to this new tab that exists here, and that is called Advanced Settings. And because there are so many different advanced settings for barcodes, it's a JSON, and this JSON allows you to enter advanced parameters for the barcode. And that could be bar width reduction or other important stuff, or it could be selecting subtypes of a particular barcode and so on. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing that you can do is I can say open the help article that belongs to this. And why is that there? Well, I have this JSON, but I also have to know what the properties are that I can put in this JSON. And then I have to know what the different values are for those properties. And that is not always easy because there are so many. So I can go to the help article that belongs to that. And there is this chapter that talks about advanced settings for barcode and matrix codes. And if you really want to see the whole list, there is a link there that will take you to the full list of all of the parameters. And believe me, it's long. And so now I could search for this data matrix thing. And what you see here is all of the different values that you can use. And so I could say, okay, I want this one. Good. So that is one way of doing it. The other thing that you can do, which may be even more helpful, is that I can go in here and say insert advanced barcode parameters. This is very similar to what you have when you write JavaScript, or as you saw yesterday, what you have when you write in position configurations now in pdfToolbox 16. This brings up a dialog box, and in that dialog box I have a list of all of these advanced parameters, and I can filter that and say, oh, it's probably DM size that I'm interested in, and there you see all of these same values. And so I could pick any of them and then just double click or click insert, and it inserts it into the JSON. Now I don't want the default because then I end up with the square one again. Luckily, I copied the one from the HTML that we were looking at from the documentation. And so this is a valid way to specify an advanced setting for the barcode. And now, when I say tests, and let's go here. So what you can see is that instead of having this square code, I now have a different aspect ratio. Yeah. And this is very interesting, not just for, as I said, for subtypes of barcodes, but there is a long list of advanced parameters that you may need. And the biggest one of that is probably bar width reduction. You couldn't set that previously, but now you can just put these things in the JSON. And the only work you have is you have to figure out what the parameter is.
One question, can the processing step barcode area be used for placing barcodes?
That is a good question. It's not so much an area as it is a layer. So I already have it open.
Create a shape. And then you would have to use the replace feature. I think
A shape from... Well, the question is what you want to accomplish. So you want to probably search where that is defined, but the processing steps by itself doesn't define an area, right? That's just a layer.
It's a layer with, normally it's a layer with...
But then it has a shape in it.
It has a shape, so
okay.
You would create a shape, then you have the area,
and
then we have this quick fix, replace.
No, you would just use place barcode into that area.
Or if you have that area in JavaScript, so it's...
Yeah. And then, so you can search for the shape that you have, so you would need to do something like select objects on the layer processing steps. Is it called barcode?
Does it have to do anything with this feature? Though?
No, it doesn't.
So it's
no.
a nice way to submit a support question, but there is a different way. Just send that question to support. Maybe you say that you're louder. I'm muted.
Yes. So if you send it to support, we can help you do it, but it should be possible.
Yes.
And in very short, it means detecting where the template object is, if you want, in the layer, the processing steps layer, and then you can put a barcode in that area. That is something that is easy. No, not easy. It's possible.
It's fun.
It's also fun, yeah. I've done a couple of similar things and it works quite well. Other questions? No? Good. It does, however, it's in that sense a good question, that it leads to something else that you can do with barcodes. And in the question, you would look for a template object and then in a way replace it by a barcode. But there are scenarios where you already have a barcode and then you want to replace that barcode with something else. And we'll give an example here. So if I have a replace barcode file, so I have more or less the same file here. I have a QR code in this file, and if I would now look at that thing, so this is a I should click it. This is a CMYK barcode, and maybe I don't want it as CMYK, but I might want it as a spot color instead. And so the question is, can I somehow find this QR code and replace it with something that I think is more print worthy? Or maybe I have a QR code that has a default value in it that all my documents get during the design phase, and now I want to replace it with the actual value that should be in the QR code. So how do I take a barcode and replace it with something else? That is actually a good question, and in pdfToolbox 16 there is, so I'll show you this fix-up. And the fix-up is replace barcode. And what it allows you to do, first of all, is to search for a barcode in the document, one or more. And I have a pre-flight check for that I call select QR codes. If you would look at what that does, is it searches a particular area for QR codes. And only QR codes, I can set which of the barcode types that are supported that I want to find. And so here I said only QR codes. So that is what this pre-flight check does. And I should go back to my fix-up. And then that QR code is looked for and it is replaced with a new barcode. And then the question is, what does it mean to replace it? It is not removed from the document. You can't really, because in some cases this QR code may be part of a larger image, and so you don't know exactly whether you can cut that object out or not. So what will happen in every case is that a background will be put on the existing barcode, and then a new barcode is added on top of that background. And you have more or less the same parameters as in the normal place barcode fix-up. So I can set the color and the font if the barcode uses a font and so on. I can set the background color. And then I have a number of options to say, okay, so do you want exactly the same barcode or do you want to change something about it? And what I would change in this example, or could change in this example, is I can change the color of the barcode, and maybe then I want to make it a spot color, which is very common for barcodes on packaging, that you want them to be in a particular separation or in a particular spot color. So I can change that here, but I could also say I also want to change the value of that barcode, and I want to put something in there that is more fun than what I already had. And so let's start by looking at what happens when I do that. So what you can see is that it took the space that I had for the existing barcode, so it detected where the QR code was, including the quiet zone around the QR code, and then it covered that with the background color that I specified, and it put a new QR code on top of it. Yeah? And that's what I have there. However, There is one more thing that I can change, and that is sometimes interesting. And that is, I have this option here that says enforce minimum quiet zone. If you know barcodes, you know that they have a blank area around them, which it helps readers to find the barcode to begin with. And this quiet zone, as it's called, needs to have certain minimum specifications in order to be a good barcode. And so I could say enforce that minimum quiet zone, and then if I would be able to handle that properly, there. And so now I have the same value in the QR code, so I changed that to penguins. I still have that, but what you see is that the QR code part, the part that is really the different blocks of the QR code, is now slightly smaller, and the quiet zone around it is definitely bigger. The reason for that is that I said enforce this minimum quiet zone that I need. Why don't we make the whole thing bigger? Well, you can't really, because you can't know what the rest of the design is like. And actually in this example, if I would make the background bigger, it would go over the text that I have at the top and the bottom. Yeah. So you don't want to do that, but I still want to make the quiet zone bigger, so the barcode gets slightly smaller. Okay. So let's get back here. So as I said, replace barcode, you have these properties, and then you can also change these last bits. Now, this is not something that you can do in production workflows without testing that it actually works. And I am absolutely certain that it is not going to work in 100% of the scenarios out there. Yeah? But it is something that if you have a controlled environment and you know that you have a certain type of barcode and that it needs to be replaced, you test whether that works or not on the files that you are going to use in this workflow, then it can be very useful. Okay.
One question, but I know it's not possible. Is there a change in barcode that in the center of the barcode a logo can be placed?
No, the engine that we use doesn't support these decorative QR codes at the moment. So there's a few things that you can do where not just placing a logo, but you can create QR codes that have all kinds of funny shapes, and where the registration markers that you have, which are always squares in pdfToolbox, can be circles or all of those things. Most of these creative modifications to QR codes are not supported in pdfToolbox. Of course, if you have a tool that can generate them, then you could use pdfToolbox to replace the QR code in the document. Very similar to what was asked about processing steps. Actually, I could look for where the QR code is. That would give me the coordinates, and then I can overlay the QR code that was generated by the outside tool. That would work. And even the functionality that we talked about, where you can extract images. So if you know that the barcode in your workflow is an image, you could potentially even use that technology to extract the image for that QR code. You can filter which image you want to extract, so you may be able to do it with that, and then you replace the image and pdfToolbox puts it back in the PDF. That would work. So you have different ways of doing that. Okay, so place barcode is one of the place something fix-ups, and there's a lot more of them in pdfToolbox, and I have a whole bunch of additional smaller and bigger features in that area. So let's take a look at that. First of all, and important, we talked about that, or I talked about it in the beginning, I believe, in the first session. pdfToolbox 16 is based on the engine that is also in pdfChip 2.6.092. So it uses the same WebKit integration that you have in pdfChip 2.6. There were some changes there, and so if you create a place content template that either uses barcodes or uses dynamic resource loading, so your HTML dynamically decides which image to put in the HTML, for example, then you will also need to look at this print-ready promise solution. Yeah? Because it uses the same engine as pdfChip, it has the same resource loading problems. And so you need to make sure that you do the right thing there. And you can find the explanation for that in the pdfChip documentation. It's not that difficult to fix, but if you would use pdfToolbox 16 and you're using either barcodes or dynamically loaded images and you have issues, remember that there is such an issue, a change, and that you can fix it. Quite simple, but you need to go to the documentation for pdfChip and look at the chapter for dynamically loaded resources. Good. Then there is a small change for place file, and I'm going to choose to just show that to you. So if I go to place file, it's probably just the same background file, yes. And now I have something here called place file, and I will open this one so I can show you what it does, and we'll just run it to begin with. This places a, what did you think, penguin on the document. What is different in pdfToolbox 16? Because of course this you could do in pdfToolbox 15 as well. There is no difference there. But what is different in pdfToolbox 16 is that I have width and height parameters here. And so I could change this to 20 by 100 and then say tests. And I get a much smaller penguin. And the 100, of course, is kind of weird, but it's because I want to show one of the other parameters now. But so the width and height determine how big this placed image is. In pdfToolbox 15, you would have to make sure that the document that you're placing has the exact correct dimensions for what you want. Here, you can have it scale to the dimensions that you want. And in general, it would put it in the, so by default it's the size that the external file has, but now I can modify that. And I can even say stretch to fill. And when I test that, I will get something very ugly, because now it has stretched the image to fill the width and height that I have. So not typically what you want, but there are certain scenarios where this actually makes sense. Yeah? So the only difference is the rest of the fix-up works exactly the same. The difference is that I now can change the width and height of the fix-up. Nice, so that is placing a penguin. And next I'm going to place a whole bunch of penguins. It gets better and better. So place file on path, and I'm going to take a file that is very simple. It has just a circle on there. The circle has a spot color. It's called cut contour. And I'm now going to say place file on path. And this is a completely new fix-up. It is called place file on path. It lets you select a file just as place file does. But instead of just placing it in a location on the page, it does the same thing as what you can do with place text on path in pdfToolbox 15. So it's more or less the same the same setup. I can run this. And I should probably show you the whole thing. So let's say zoom to fit there. So it looked at where the path is, and then it positioned, I asked for 15 penguins, so it positioned 15 penguins, and it has, as you can see, they follow the curvature of the path that I'm placing them on. And they are at 20 millimeter outside of the path. And so I could say, well, I want them on the inside of the path, maybe a little bit closer to it. And instead of an exact number of repetitions, I can also say average distance. And then we could ask for a lot of penguins. I'm actually not sure what it's going to do with that. I'm probably going to have a whole lot of penguins now. Yeah, so nice decorative effect. So you can place these things along a path. What is the use case? Well, obviously not penguins for most people, maybe for me, but not for most people. But if you place grommets, and you want to place grommets, for example, around the cut contour of a banner that has rounded corners or something like that, then this will allow you to do that. When you say the distance is 0, it places the center of the file that you're placing on the path. Positive numbers are towards the outside, negative numbers are towards the inside. Okay. So a whole new fix-up for you to play with. And then a very small one, there is also something called place text, and which a lot of you, I'm sure, have used. And then the one I want is this one, multiple lines. And so I have a place text with a little string, and when I run that, it gets placed on a single line. That's what you're used to. And now I have two options. I could say I want this to break there. That is something that worked in pdfToolbox 15 as well, by the way. And then the result is that there is a line break there, but in pdfToolbox 16, the situation is a little bit easier. So now I can just say I'm going to put it on different lines. And then when I do that, I get exactly what I expect. So you can still use this BR, which is the HTML way of saying line break. But you can just use an enter and put stuff on different lines in the input field, and then it will put it on different lines in your PDF. And in case you're thinking, oh, do the other HTML tags also work? The answer is no, I've tried it. So, small thing, but we've had that question, can you put something on multiple lines? You know who you are. It was very recent even. So it's now easier in pdfToolbox 16, and not just easier, it's also much more clear that yes, this is something that is possible. And the last one for place something, and then we're going to look at something else for a second. But the last one has to do with place content, so the one that uses an HTML template. One of the annoying things, and trust me, I know I've been in that situation a lot of times, is you make a place content template, so you make an HTML template and some JavaScript and some CSS, and then you run it and it doesn't work. And in pdfToolbox 15, if it doesn't work, what you have to do is you have to try and figure out why pdfToolbox and the underlying pChip engine doesn't like you at that moment. Yeah. And there were some strategies to do it, but it's a lot of clicking around and it's very frustrating. And in pdfToolbox 16, there is a better way of doing that. And so let me see. So here I have one that is place content template, and it uses a template in the background. And I think I can show you what this template looks like. Yeah, and I have a thing that is a const, and then I assign something else to that, and that obviously is a no-no. Even ChatGPT knows that. I started to type a content after it, and ChatGPT said this will cause an error, which is completely correct. Obviously, the problem is that my favorite animal is a penguin, and if I try to say something else, then we get errors. So how do you figure out what the error is? Well, in pdfToolbox 16, that is really nice. So I can now say tests. pdfToolbox runs it, and I get a fix-up failure, meaning that there is something wrong with my fix-up. And now when I open this, it says JavaScript error, type error, attempted to assign to a read-only property, which is completely correct, and it's completely what the actual problem is. Yeah? So if you have JavaScript errors that are caused by these templates, in many cases, you will have an error immediately coming up, and that is probably going to save you a lot of time trying to figure out what the problem was. Okay. And then it is time for Dietrich, who is impersonating Jeremy today.
Yes, you never. Yes. Okay, you never can replace Jeremy. So, but I try to. Jeremy is our new OEM director, and he had to leave early because of the Heathrow problems today. And then since I've been working as kind of an OEM director for a long time, I try to give my best to kind of replace him. It's going to be a short thing. It's about haptic color. And we also have some hands-on, as it should be for something that is haptic. So first, what actually is haptic color? What is haptic print? Yeah. It's you use printing in order to create some haptic appearance. So to elevate print, to make it somewhat 3D-like, textured design. Reason is you maybe want to have some increased product value, a luxury feel, and you normally use that in high quality commercial print or for textile, wall coverings, for cans or bottles. You can use that. How do you actually do that? So you can do that using analog or digital print, and these days quite often you're using digital print for it, meaning inkjet. You can combine it with color, with inks. You can combine it with CMYK, matte or gloss. And typically you either have it as a packaging or you even have it as part of a product. So here just behind my head, you see on the left-hand side a lipstick, and then right of it there is a case for the lipstick, and then there is some texture on the case for the lipstick, and that is applied by haptic print. So that is one of the use cases for haptic print. And of course, as with everything that is processed automatically, you would want to have something in the PDF file that indicates where you would want to have this haptic ink, however that is created, and whatever that is, where that has to be applied to the surface. And typically what you do is you derive something from the page and then apply some transfer curve to the rendering of what you have derived from the page, and the transfer curves specifies the relation between the amount of haptic print ink and the page content. And a very similar thing already existed in pdfToolbox 15, which is create spot color plate based on ink amount. That was originally introduced to create a white form, but you could as well easily use it for haptic print. So we didn't change a lot actually. What we have and what you will find in pdfToolbox 16 is a new predefined fix-up, derived spot color for haptic print. And you will find that in the default library prepress color and transparency. The only parameter that we've added is exclude process colors from ink amount. There already was exclude spot colors from ink amount, but for haptic print, you may also want to exclude process colors. So there is another input field now to do that. And then the other thing that we've changed, you have two predefined transfer curves, one haptic print, and that is used in this predefined fix-up, and then there is another one that is not used in any of the predefined fix-ups, that is haptic print inverted. And you can easily see here what this going to do is, so wherever you have ink below 50%, nothing's happening. As soon as you enter above, so as soon as you have 0.5, 41%, 51%, then it will translate to 51% haptic print ink, and then going up to 100% maximum. And then we can actually also demonstrate how that works. So then we want to find a file here, which should be that one. And we want to find our pdfToolbox. And then, yes, I know. Okay, I can. Normally, I don't have issues dragging files onto pdfToolbox. I have that issue once in a while when I'm working with David's computer. And now the other thing that I can always do is I can pick the original, the library that comes with pdfToolbox 16. And then I normally also can type haptic, especially if I have an English. What is this, Quartz keyboard? Anyway, so here I have a white paper, and then let's just use this predefined fix-up, derived spot color for haptic print. And as always, or as often, we use the test mode. Here, clicking the Alt key, and then it creates some result, which has color, and maybe we should instead do that right and create a file here, which we have done before. And now it does the same, but now since it's not in test mode, we can also have a look at the separations. So this is a cyan, but here we also have a new spot color which has the title haptic print, and that shows that here, yeah, there should be a shade still, but since it's now only coming from 51 to 100, it's pretty dark here. And then, yeah, this is my haptic print spot color. And then I have a very low resolution because that is what I was using for in this fix-up here, 96. So normally you would probably want to go higher. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to say in episode 5. So actually that is what Jeremy wanted to say in episode 5 of this season. And now we're going back to David.
Okay. So now you've insulted my computer again, so it's probably not going to listen to me.
Listen to your haptic touches.
Okay, I think I have two more things. I know the line is one more thing, but in this case, I think it's two. And the first one is a way to create files. And I'm going to show that in pdfToolbox because it's a lot of fun. It's probably not for everyone and for every case. But so I have a bunch of process plans here, and one of them is identify color pages. This is something that you will find also in pdfToolbox 16. It is not exactly what I want to talk about, but I'm using it as an example. The process plan, this is something that comes from pdfCamp, by the way. It was a topic that came up at pdfCamp. How can I check a document that has a lot of pages and figure out which pages are color and which pages are black and white? And so in this document, there are some pages that are intentionally black and white and some others that are intentionally colored. And so when I run that, I can just do analyze for this. So when I run that, the real goal here is these variables. And so you can see that it comes back and says there are 8 color pages, there are 7 black and white pages, and then there are 2 variables that have lists with all of those pages to identify them. Why would you want to do that? Well, for example, you are printing these documents and you want to know for how many pages you're going to get a 1 separation click, and for how many pages you're going to have to pay more because they are full color. What I really want to talk about is that there are cases where I now want to have this information outside of pdfToolbox. And of course, I could then say, I'm going to create these variables as I did here. And then when you run pdfToolbox, you can either do a JSON report or an XML report or a var dump report. And then you get all of the variables that are inside as well. Yeah? What I couldn't do is create something that outputs a JSON or an XML or a CSV or a text-based file that has exactly the format that I want. And in pdfToolbox 16, that is exactly what I can do. So I can, let me go back to here. I have a process plan, and I will show you what is in there. So 2 steps. The first one is this process plan that I just ran. The second one is an action, and that action is a new type. So the action type is create file. You cannot specify where that file is created. For those of you who have any idea about computer security, you can think about why that is, because otherwise I could quite easily make a process plan that takes over your computer, which can't be the purpose of this. So the file will either be generated next to the output file or in a subfolder next to the output file, depending on the settings of the process step. What I can do is I can come up with the file name, and then I have the file content. And in the first way I can do this is by here just typing the file content and then inserting variables in there. And this will create a JSON file that contains exactly the variables that I want. Now, this is a little bit painful because you have to type these things in here, and it's very easy to get JSON incorrect in this way if you're just typing it. So there is a better way of doing it, and I will show you that as well. The better way is, I think every way where you have a JavaScript variable is better, so that's not that strange. But the better way is that I've now inserted a little bit of JavaScript, and so it's very simple. Here I have my JSON that I want, so I create an object and I just enter it here. And I have the same variable, so it would look exactly the same, but here I can use the script editor and I get color syntax and whatever to help me a little bit. And then I save that into a variable, app.vars.json content. So this creates a simple variable for the rest of the process plan that is called JSON content. And then my action looks much simpler. I still have the name that I want, and I have just JSON content, and this is the simple variable that is calculated by the script that comes before. And for me, this is a much better way of doing it. That was, of course, not my invention, but René, who saw my clumsy attempt and decided that there was a better way of doing it. And he was right. And so when you run this, it ends up in the output folder as a JSON file. And that way you can then pick it up. You could do this in Switch, for example, or using CLI, and it gives you a JSON file. You pick that up and you have all the information you want in the format that you want. The restriction is that it's text-based, so it needs to be an output file format that is text-based. So very nice if you're doing complex projects. And then the what I think is the last one, and absolutely the geekiest one of all. So obviously I have to present it because it's fun. If you thought that all the mathematics you learned in high school or wherever was wasted, here it is. So apply transformation matrix. This is a quick fix. It's not an action, it's a quick fix. And the goal is really to give you a way to transform all of the page content on the page. It does not change the page geometry itself. So this quick fix does not modify the trim box or bleed box and so on. It just modifies the content, the page content itself. And I will show you what the effect is, and then we'll talk about how that happens and why I think it's nice and geeky. So do I have a file for that? I'm sure. It's not even a penguin. What happens to the world? So let me do this. And I prepared some of these things, and I'll take the rotate one, for example, and then I can say test, and it rotates my mouse 90 degrees to the right. And I could say this scale one, and then that scales it to 50%. And I have one that does a skew, so different scale change in one direction and in the other direction. And I have one that was probably a mathematically incorrect explanation, by the way, but and then a move one. So again, the page geometry doesn't change. I've not changed the trim box or the media box, but I have modified the position, in this case, of the page content. So how does that work, and why would you want to do it? Well, the first one is quite easy. We run a 2D transformation matrix on all of the page objects with a specific reference point. So I can say, do a scaling relative to the center of the page, for example, and then it will scale it nicely down or up depending on what I want. And I'll show you how that looks. Why would you want to do it? Well, in some cases, especially if you try to integrate pdfToolbox in, I don't know, an online tool where a user can move the page around or scale it down or do things like that. And then I want to do that very often on a preview because that's quick. And when I'm done, I then want to run it on the actual file using pdfToolbox. That was not so difficult, not so easy in the past, because I would have to keep track of all of the transformations that I do and then provide pdfToolbox with a list of transformations, and then pdfToolbox would run that on the PDF file. So not that easy altogether. Now I have a 2D transformation matrix, and that means that I can keep track of these transformations, and a lot of them can be combined into one matrix and then run on the file. How does it look? Well, let's take take this one here. So this is a apply 2D transformation matrix one, and what it does is it gives me the matrix fields. They're called A, B, C, D, E, F, which is the same naming convention as what you have in the PDF specification, and the way it works is also exactly the same as how it works in the PDF specification. I told you it was geeky. And then you have the relative to is the transformation origin, if you want. If you look at CSS, for example, you have similar capabilities, and you also have a transformation origin that you need to set. And depending on what the transformation origin is, you will have different results in the end. So, let's see, I want to do this one still. And so just to complete this, this is the matrix that was added if you know enough mathematics and you didn't give up at that point in school, which I admit I almost did when it came to matrices. You have these 6 numbers that are important. The last column is always 001 in a 2D transformation matrix. And then if you want to get an idea of what you need to do, and luckily there are websites that can help you with some of this, this is how these matrices look for moving objects, what is here called translation, or a rotation around an angle, or a scaling, or this nice skewing that you saw in one of the examples as well. The intention, of course, in most cases is not that you would manually calculate this. It's possible, I've done it to create these examples, but that's not the intention of this quick fix. The intention is that you have some kind of code that is running that knows what the transformation is that the user has asked for, and that passes that information as variables to pdfToolbox. And then pdfToolbox just applies that matrix on the file.